Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you all for attending tonight, this kind of windy, threatening rain night. Today's a very special day. It's the disappearance day of His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura, and Srila Prabhupada's guru, his spiritual master. And I was thinking how we had a wonderful class this morning by Badrinarayan Swami. He gave us so much insight into some of the lesser-known pastimes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura. So I'd like to kind of explore a little bit about Srila Prabhupada's first days in America, and keeping in mind that it was under Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura's order that Srila Prabhupada came to America. Srila Prabhupada met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati first in 1922 in Calcutta. The Gaudiya Math had just been founded. Srila Prabhupada was a young householder. He had one child already. He was a manager in a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant, I believe. And he had grown up. His father was Gaur Mohan Dey, wonderful pure Vaishnav. And he raised Srila Prabhupada as a Vaishnav. Srila Prabhupada saw the Rath Yatra, and he wanted to have a Rath Yatra. His father arranged for it as a little mini Rath Yatra, and he invited all his friends. And they lived across the street, I believe, from a temple. And Prabhupada would go into the temple and gaze at the deities. He said sometimes he would gaze for hours at the Radha Krishna deities there. And so he was had a great example of being born in a wonderful Vaishnava family. And but he also tells a story about how his father was so open and wonderful that he would invite sadhus in. If they came to the door, he would invite them in and feed them and listen to them. But Prabhupada saw, as he grew up, that some of these sadhus weren't really serious. You know, in fact, he tells the story of he saw one fellow, he would just get put on the orange robes as a kind of a costume, and he would go around and beg, because very piously, you know, and in this way he would make, it was his business. And so he, when he was asked by one of his friends to go visit this wonderful sadhu, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, he was doubtful. He didn't want to go. He said, no, I've seen all these sadhus, you know. But his friend insisted, said, no, this one is different, this one is different. So finally, Prabhupada, he relented, Krishna's arrangement, and he went up. This was the first temple, the first temple that the Gaudiya Math had in Calcutta. It was just being established. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was sitting on the roof. He was giving darshan to some of his brahmacharis and enthusiasts. And then Prabhupada walked in, offered his obeisances, and before he even got up, he said, Bhaktisiddhanta said, you're an educated young man, why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya's mission all over the world? Prabhupada was flabbergasted. He hadn't even been introduced yet. He said, you know, this is in the wonderful book called Prabhupada Lilamrita, which is a biography of Srila Prabhupada, and by Satsu Das Goswami. And so Srila Prabhupada, he at that time was a follower of Gandhi. Gandhi's movement was afoot even in those early days, 22. They finally got the freedom from the British Raj in 47. And Prabhupada was behind it. He was in the movement. He was wearing simple khadi, means that it was cloth that was woven in India with a little rougher. And this was one of Gandhi's strategies, that if we can do it, because they would sell the cloth from England, and this way they make a profit. So if we do our own cloth, this is an act of revolution. So Prabhupada was he objected to that. He said, well, we're dependent on the British until we get independence. Who's going to really give us any credence? And Bhaktisiddhanta said, no, this Krishna consciousness can't wait for anything political. It's completely beyond that. The urgency is much greater than that. So Prabhupada said he had an argument, and he lost the argument. And he was defeated. It's probably the only time he was ever defeated in an argument. He listened to Prabhupada talk to all these reporters and everything. So the upshot was that Srila Prabhupada was attracted, and he was very thankful to his friend who insisting that he came up there. He said, yes, he's a worthy representative of Lord Chaitanya. He's carrying on the movement nicely. So that order, that instruction to preach widely, take Lord Chaitanya's mission and instructions outside of India, and especially to preach in English. Srila Prabhupada had been educated in English. Stayed with Srila Prabhupada. Eventually he took initiation, of course, became a very staunch follower of the Gaudiya Math, and even in his business days he was helping the preaching. And when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he would see him occasionally. There was a famous talk that they had on the banks of Radhakund when they were visiting Vrindavan. Srila Prabhupada was walking with him privately. I think he had his children, at least the painting shows he had one of his kids with him. And Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura instructed, if you ever get money, print books. And this Srila Prabhupada took to heart, as well as the whole instruction of go to America. And so that was one of his main things. Even in India, he was doing Back to Godhead magazine, and one of his friends, after a while, he said, well, you know, this little magazine, which has really made a few pages every month or so, people can't, you know, they'll discard it. But if you print a book, that'll stay with them. They'll put it on their shelf. It has more substance. Prabhupada took it to heart. And he started translating the Bhagavat Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. Now you can imagine, by this time he'd taken sannyas, and he had no independent source of income. He wasn't supported by the Gaudiya Math. The Gaudiya Math, after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati departed in, I think, the beginning of 36, if I'm not mistaken. Gradually, it came into little factions. People wanted to be the different acharyas, wanted to be the supreme acharya of the Gaudiya Math, which was not what Bhaktisiddhanta wanted. And so Srila Prabhupada tried to work with them and with God Brothers, but eventually he became independent, which means that he had no institutional support. So how to print? I mean, I've been involved in the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust for almost 50 years now, and I know what it takes to print a book. You know, the writing it, of course, and then the proofreading and the editing and the typesetting and getting the money to print the book. So Prabhupada, somehow or other, by his incredible devotion and perseverance. And I must say his business acumen also came in handy. You know, he had been a businessman for some time. He was able to get 3 volumes of the first canto printed, the first canto. And with those, he finally said, well, it's now or never. He was 69. And he said, if I'm going to go to the West and preach in English and do what my spiritual master ordered me to do, I have to do it. Now I have these books. You know, he felt he had some ammunition. So he came to America, famously he was able to convince the head of the main cargo steamship company in India, the Scindia steamship line, which was a lady. Her name was Sumati Murarji. He convinced, he was a Vaishnava, very serious, devout Vaishnava in the Vallabhacharya sect, which is close to the Gaudiya line. And she, at first, you know, Prabhupada was 69. His health wasn't that great, and yet he said, you have to give me, and she said, no, you'll just die over there, Swami. I'm not going to give you a free passage. And so he had a little sit-in at her office. There's a photograph of Prabhupada sitting on her front stairs there, and he's chanting Hare Krishna, you know, waiting to... And finally, to her great credit, she gave Prabhupada free passage, and he arrived in America in September 17, 18, so in 1965. Now, the reason why this is introduction to what I wanted to emphasize this morning, and that is, after a struggle, almost a year, you know, Prabhupada was able to found the ISKCON Society in, I think, July of 1966. And some of, you know, the wonderful first devotees there, I'm just reading Mukunda Maharaj's memoir, you know, Miracle on 2nd Avenue, how things came together. And one of the wonderful things that came together was that Prabhupada became a little famous at that time, because Allen Ginsberg was into chanting Hare Krishna. Does Allen Ginsberg name mean much these days? Not as much as it used to. But he was very famous as a poet and a pioneer of the hip movement and the beatnik movement and all of this thing. And so he was living there in the Lower East Side, and he came to the 26th 2nd Avenue Temple, you know, which is immediately, you know, he was world famous. And he met Srila Prabhupada, and he liked to chant Hare Krishna. So it goes like that. And because there was an article in New York Times about Prabhupada, you know, which is amazing. So what happened was that there was this one fellow who was making records of people speaking. It wasn't music, it was speaking. I think he had JFK on there, and some others. So he wanted to get a record of Srila Prabhupada chanting and speaking on a record. And Prabhupada said, yes, let's do it. You know, he was really into it. And the night before, just to show you how Krishna arranges things, you know, what drums are you going to use? Prabhupada had no mridungas. You know, he had a little half of a bongo drum. I don't know if you've ever seen him playing, you know, he was just beating on that drum. And he was going out in Tompkins Square Park and beating for hours and chanting Hare Krishna. And this way, people were coming interested. The night before the record was going to be made, some fellow walks into the little temple, the 26th 2nd Avenue, with a mridanga. Where did he get a mridanga? I know where he got a mridanga because I lived right near there, and 2 years later in '68. And there was an Indian music instrument store right near the Paradox restaurant, which I used to take lunch in. Prabhupada, it was a connection there that brought him downtown. It's a long history. So anyway, he had the drum, and Prabhupada's eyes lit up. Oh, bring it here, bring it here. And he played it, and the devotees were mesmerized. Prabhupada would play so expertly. He played from childhood. He learned how to play the mridanga. His father insisted that he should learn the mridanga, and he did as a child. So then, you know, the session ended, and he needed his drum back, and they said, well, can you come tomorrow morning? We're going to record a record. And something, yeah, he won't be back, you know. But sure enough, he came, and that's what you hear on that record, the first record, what was it called? Krishna Consciousness, the Happening album. But so that record, on that record, Prabhupada has an address about chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, which he had written. I think Hayagriva was there, probably edited a little bit. And I wanted to read that address. This record eventually made its way to England, to the Beatles, especially to George Harrison. And he would, I heard about this. He was floating in some boat near the Greece, and with maybe John Lennon, and they were on vacation, and they were playing this record again and again and again and again. And Prabhupada's chanting with the first boys there in the kirtan, and then he gives this address. So I'm going to read this address, and then we'll go through, because he summarizes the whole essence of this movement, which is chanting Hare Krishna mantra. So he says, the transcendental vibration, this is on the record, this transcendental vibration established by the chanting of the Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the sublime method for reviving our transcendental consciousness. As living spiritual souls, we are all originally Krishna conscious entities, but due to our association with matter from time immemorial, our consciousness is now adulterated by the material atmosphere. The material atmosphere in which we are now living is called Maya, or illusion. Maya means that which is not. And what is this illusion? The illusion is that we are all trying to be lords of material nature, while actually we are under the grip of her stringent laws. When a servant artificially tries to imitate the all-powerful master, he is said to be in illusion. We are trying to exploit the resources of material nature, but actually we are becoming more and more entangled in her complexities. Therefore, although we are engaged in a hard struggle to conquer nature, we are ever more dependent on her. This illusory struggle against material nature can be stopped at once by revival of our Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare is the transcendental process for reviving this original pure consciousness. By chanting this transcendental vibration, we can cleanse away all misgivings within our hearts. The basic principle of all such misgivings is the false consciousness that I am the Lord of all I survey. Now this next line of sentence is very famous. Krishna consciousness is not an artificial imposition on the mind. This consciousness is the original natural energy of the living entity. When we hear this transcendental vibration, this consciousness is revived. This simplest method of meditation is recommended for this age. By practical experience also, one can perceive that by chanting this Maha Mantra, or the great chanting for deliverance, one can at once feel a transcendental ecstasy coming through from the spiritual stratum. In the material concept of life, we are busy in the matter of sense gratification, as if we were in the lower animal stage. A little elevated from this status of sense gratification, one is engaged in mental speculation for the purpose of getting out of the material clutches. A little elevated from this speculative status, when one is intelligent enough, one tries to find out the supreme cause of all causes, within and without. And when one is factually on the plane of spiritual understanding, surpassing the stages of sense, mind, and intelligence, he is then on the transcendental plane. This chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is enacted from the spiritual platform, and thus this sound vibration surpasses all lower strata of consciousness, namely sensual, mental, and intellectual. There is no need, therefore, to understand the language of the mantra, nor is there any need for mental speculation, nor any intellectual adjustment for chanting the Maha Mantra. It is automatic from the spiritual platform, and as such, anyone can take part in the chanting without any previous qualification. Even a dog can take part. In a more advanced stage, of course, one is not expected to commit offenses on the grounds of spiritual understanding. In the beginning, there may not be the presence of all the transcendental ecstasies, but there is no doubt that chanting for a while takes one immediately to the spiritual platform, and one shows the first symptoms of this in the urge to dance along with the chanting of the mantra. We have seen this practically. Even a child can take part in the chanting and dancing. Of course, for one who is too entangled in material life, it takes a little more time to come to the standard point. But even such a materially engrossed person is raised to the spiritual platform very quickly. When the mantra is chanted by a pure devotee of the Lord in love, it has the greatest efficacy on hearers, and as such this chanting should be heard from the lips of a pure devotee of the Lord, so that immediate effects can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of non-devotees should be avoided, as much as milk touched by the lips of a serpent has poisonous effects. Now, even though Prabhupada just said that it's not necessary to understand the meaning of the mantra, now he explains what each word means. The word Hara is the form of addressing the energy of the Lord, and it becomes Hare in the vocative. And the words Krishna and Rama are forms of addressing the Lord himself. Both Krishna and Rama mean the supreme pleasure, and Hara is the supreme pleasure energy of the Lord, changed to Hare in the vocative. The supreme pleasure energy of the Lord helps us to reach the Lord. The material energy called Maya is also one of the multi-energies of the Lord, and we, the living entities, are also the energy, the marginal energy of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior to material energy. When the superior energy is in contact with the inferior energy, an incompatible situation arises. But when the superior marginal energy is in contact with the superior energy, Hara, it is established in its happy, normal condition. These three words, namely Hare, Krishna, and Rama, are the transcendental seeds of the Maha Mantra. The chanting is a spiritual call for the Lord and His energy to give protection to the conditioned soul. This chanting is exactly like the genuine cry of a child for its mother's presence. Mother Hara helps the devotee achieve the Lord Father's grace, and the Lord reveals Himself to the devotee who chants this mantra sincerely. No other means of spiritual realization is as effective in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy as the chanting of the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So this is Srila Prabhupada's immortal explanation of the chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna mantra. And this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is what is carrying forth this movement. Day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. It is, I remember my own little experience of how I was so fortunate to begin chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Believe it or not, I didn't first hear the mantra from the Hare Krishna people. I heard it from another yoga group. They was part of the meditation. They didn't tell us what anything meant. It was just that we chanted this mantra, that mantra, then we tried to meditate, you know. So anyway, I was, first I said, you have to meditate, you pick your own mantra, whatever you want, out of this group. So I picked Om. What else? Om. Have you ever tried meditating on Om? It's hard after 15 minutes. So after some time, I was in the bookstore of one of the yoga studios I was going to, and believe it or not, there was a whole booklet about the glories of the Hare Krishna mantra. Because the guru of this yogi I was studying under, he had apparently a kanda kirtan, means constant kirtan in his ashram in South Africa for 25 years. Now I assume there was some recorded kirtan that was going on. But I mean, that means day and night, 24 hours. So there was some people, none of whom I had heard of before, Indian gentlemen who had written about the glories of this mantra. Anyway, I picked that mantra to be, well, this should be my meditation mantra. And I still hadn't visited the temple. So I'm chanting the mantra in my mind and chanting, you know. And I'm feeling some special effects, and I'm wondering about this mantra. And before long, someone invited me to come to this temple, to the new temple, and I visited there, and I got a book. The book that I got, and this is what I want to also emphasize, is that there's a tremendous amount of philosophy that undergirds or supports this chanting of the holy name. When I came in touch with, not first with the Bhagavad Gita, but first with the Krishna book. Krishna book is a book that Srila Prabhupada wrote because he had so many disciples. They were starting to grow in America, and it was 1970 or so. And then he realized that they're chanting Hare Krishna and they're getting blissful, but they really don't know much about the life of Krishna, about the pastimes of Krishna, which is in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada is, working on the 2nd canto, 3rd canto, 4th. So he stopped working on the Bhagavatam, and he dictated the translation of this 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which contains all Krishna's Leela, not only the ones in Vrindavan that are so famous, dancing with the gopis and the cowherd boys and the cows, and we just had with getting bound by his mother and all these things, but also in Mathura and in Dwarka, when he took the role of a king and many queens and even children, many children. So all of that was there in Krishna book. But when I first started reading it, it was too much. I was into the meditation. I was more or less impersonal. It was too much detail for me, too much lila for my crippled mentality. But when I bought the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, I was very philosophically inclined. And of course the Bhagavad Gita. But those teachings of Lord Chaitanya intrigued me so much, because there was so much about the chanting and so forth, and that really made me want to visit the temple more and more, and eventually I joined in March of 1973. And I was so fortunate. 2 weeks later, Srila Prabhupada arrived in the temple, which is very rare. Some devotees never got to see Srila Prabhupada personally. So I just wanted to go through some of the points Srila Prabhupada makes in this address. And he more or less explains the basic philosophy, is that we are spiritual beings. This is in the Bhagavad Gita, the first lesson in the second chapter. You'll find that Arjuna, he was put into illusion. He's an eternal associate of Krishna. But for the purpose of speaking the Bhagavad Gita, to put it mildly, he got cold feet when it came time to actually look and see who he was going to have to fight on this battlefield. Because these were all people dear to him. These were like, he wasn't his physical grandfather, but he took the role of grandfather, Bhishma Dev, who was on the other side. Won't get into all the details of why. But he had helped raise him when his father died untimely, and his mother was, had 5 little kids with her, and Bhishma Dev stepped in and he helped a lot. Very dear. His teacher, Dronacharya, was there. Dronacharya had trained him in martial science, and how could he kill his teacher? And then there were all the blood relatives and other relatives that he found, even the Kurus who were trying to usurp the kingdom. They were also what Prabhupada called cousin brothers. They were part of the same family. So Arjuna said, how can I kill this if whatever kingdom I win will be soaked with their blood of my dear relatives? I'd rather just leave the battlefield and go become a beggar, But Krishna wanted him to fight. This was the thing. Krishna took the role of his chariot driver. He had promised that I will not fight in the battle, but whatever Duryodhana, he can have all my army. He had all these armies, these soldiers and elephants and chariots and everything. But I'll just be on your side. And Arjuna said, that's okay. I'll just take you. He can have the armies. So Duryodhana thought he had a great deal, and Arjuna knew that he had the best deal. So Krishna is on his chariot, taking the role of a servant, serving Arjuna, his dear friend. And Krishna wanted the battle to take place. This was all part of his plan to reinstitute Dharma in the world. Why he comes, Yadaya Dahi Dharma Saglana Bhavati Bharata. Some of you may know this verse. That in order to reinstitute Dharma, protect the devotees, and get rid of the miscreant demons, I appear again and again in this world. So Arjuna was a critical factor. He was the main warrior on one side, on the side of the Pandavas, the good. And now he didn't want to fight. So Krishna, before he started speaking in the role of the Supreme Personality of God as the Guru, he's speaking in the role of a friend and another Kshatriya. So how has this impotence come upon you? You'll lose all your name and fame. You'll be thought a coward. Get up and fight. Cast away. This is. And Arjuna said, I know, but I can't. I can't. So he finally drops his bow. He sits down and Govinda, I shall not fight. Like that. But then he he changes the whole dynamic by saying, now I'm not going to argue with you as a friend. Karpanya dosho pahataso bhava prichamitam dharma samuda cheta. I'm completely bewildered about what the right thing is to do. Dharma samuda cheta. And because of my miserly weakness and all of this, I've lost my actual nature as a Kshatriya, as a fighter, you see. So what's the solution? Karpanya dosho pahatas prichamitam dharma samuja yakshe yaksyan nishtitam bruhi tanme. You please tell me for certain what is best for me. She yaksyan nishtitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham sharimam tvam papannam. I am now your shishya, your disciple. You are my guru. We're not friend to friend anymore. Please instruct me what is best for me. This is Arjuna. He surrenders there. Mam prapannam. And then the whole conversation changes. And the first thing Krishna says is, Ashochanam Vashochastam Pragyavaram Shabasase. He chastised the disciple. He says, you're speaking learned words. He had all kinds of arguments in the first chapter from the Vedas, why I shouldn't. But you don't know what you're talking about. You're lamenting for what is not, with wise persons don't lament for, the physical body. And so then he explains how we're not the body. This is the first thing you learn when you're in the temple. You're not the body, Prabhu. Now go wash the pots. No. The point is that we're spirit soul. We're spirit, not the body. And everybody is simply in the bodily concept of life. All this business of nationalism and racism and all of this, it has to do with the physical body, which we're not. We have the temporarily occupying these vehicles, And as we act in the vehicles, that will determine our future and what future we get in our next body. Jayate meyate vakadacham. Prabhupada must have quoted this verse 1,000 times. The soul is never born and never dies. He's unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. We are not slain when the body is slain. So this is the foundation. Now, this knowledge, this truth, should shake up our whole calculation of what's important in life. What should we strive for? Because anything you strive for that's simply in relation to this body, that's material, is going to you're going to lose it. Either you're going to be separated by death or it's going to be taken away by time before death. So what is the point? Just like Lord Rishabhdev says, Nayam deho deha bhajang niloke. I took this verse and I tweaked it a little bit for in general audience. It says, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for Harish happiness. To Bhakti Yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. Now you see that this is a very important point, because what is Krishna consciousness is in one sense so down to earth, because it takes us exactly where we live. So what are we striving for? Does everyone in this room, would anyone deny that we'd like to maximize our happiness as much as possible and minimize our suffering as much as possible? Does anyone want to argue with that? Say, no, I'd like to maximize my suffering. No. That's just a general thing, not even for human beings. Every single soul, embodied soul on this planet, is trying to do that. The little, insects that when I take my walk sometimes in the evening, you see, there's little, a lot of crickets somehow or other, and then these big bugs, and they have a strategy, because they hear me coming, I'm clomping down, and so the first thing they do is stop. They don't move, because they know if they move, that bird or anything that's coming is going to see them and try to eat them. So they stop, which is good, because then they can step over them, and they don't have to worry about crushing them. But they're trying to maximize their life, they're not thinking about it, but it's just, that's what they're doing. And then there are certain things where they get pleasure. Eating, right? Most of their life is trying to find sustenance, and then of course mating, And so it's universal. And when you get up, now we have a more refined consciousness, so we try to, according to the modes of nature. But it's all related to the body or the mind, But the point is, it's temporary. Whatever pleasures we can have are temporary, and Krishna says, revolutionarily in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate. Those pleasures that we enjoy in relation from the senses and the sense objects, that's the source of our misery. They have a beginning and end, O Arjun, and the wise person does not delight in them, does not take in them. Well, okay, then where's the enjoyment? Is it? The enjoyment is in chanting Hare Krishna. The enjoyment is in opening up the channel through devotional service, beginning with chanting, of the eternal happiness of the soul. As spirit souls, we are part and parcel of the Supreme Spirit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. One of these Vedanta sutras, these sutras are wonderful little aphorisms that are the essence of Vedic wisdom, written right near the end of Vyasadev's literary career. He wrote the Vedanta Sutra, then he writes the commentary, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. But one of the ones Prabhupada would always quote, Anandamayo Bhyasat, means that the supreme absolute truth is filled with ananda, always. We can see by his activities, and this is filled with bliss, always. Krishna never has any, mental crisis. Oh God, why am I suffering so much? No, he's always blissful. Even when he's killing the demons, it's just play. That's what Leela means. It's play. But his most treasured Leela is in the spiritual world in Goloka Vrindavan, where he's engaging with his friends, with his parents, with his lovers, with his servants, with the cows. They're all completely conscious, and they're serving him just according to their preference, and he's reciprocating in this loving exchange. That ananda, that blissful experience, never ends. It's not that you come down from it. It's not that it ends and you have to go to work somewhere. What's the work? Herding the cows. The cows. The cowherd boys go out, right? And they say, all right, let's go. There's a painting where Krishna and Balaram are running along the Yamuna, and all the cows are there and the cowherd boys are there. I wrote a little poem. There's a wonderful painting. Let's go, said Krishna. Don't delay at all. And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their cowherd friends who called, oh, Krishna, Rama, let us join the fun. And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts to play in every bower, grove, and sward. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well to join him in his pastimes, which enthrall the wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, let's go, my friends, do not delay at all. You see? So that world of the spiritual world, pure spirit, there's no material, there's no maya there, there's no mahamaya, illusion, is forever. That's the eternal world. We left there. That's where we belong. In Prabhupada's immortal phrase, let's go back home, back to Godhead. This movement of go back home means that's where we were. That's home. Home is the place where no one will ever evict you. We all have our houses and our apartments somewhere. Sometimes in poor homeless, they got their little corner, It's tragic. But eventually you got to leave. Just like you're going to leave this body, eventually you leave your house. There's no place that's permanent here. That's the eternal world. So there's a song that says how this Hare Krishna mantra is imported from the Goloka Vrindavan. It's imported from there. It's purely spiritual, especially, as Prabhupada mentions here, when heard from the lips of a pure devotee. It has so much potency. But even if we, just take it up and we're not pure, we have so many attachments, so many confusions. If we chant sincerely, trying to focus on the name, with japa, we have our meditation beads. I'm sure you've seen some of us have the beads with us here. And the kirtan. Now the kirtan, especially Krishna came to give us in the form of Lord Chaitanya, 540 years ago or so. And it's the easiest way of meditation, especially in this age. He says, how are these? Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna talks about dhyana yoga. The whole thing is about different kinds of yogas. Yoga means to connect. This is what yoga means, to connect with the supreme, absolute truth. You can do it through work. You can do it through just your mind. You can do it through meditation, the mind. Or you can do it with everything through bhakti. Bhakti yoga it contains meditation. What is this smaranam? You come here at 5:15 or 5:30 in the morning, all the way to 7:15, and you see devotees with chanting on the beads. What are we chanting? Hare Krishna mantra. This is the meditation. That's smaranam. That smaranam means remembrance. That's the meditation. We're meant to be completely focused, But there's so much more. The hands can be engaged, And the feast is being prepared. They're using their hands. They're using their mind. You see, the intelligence certainly has to be engaged. And all of these objects, this temple is sacred. It's everywhere you go. Everything is in the service of Krishna. You see. And therefore it's all sacred, it's spiritualized. And we ourselves can become spiritualized when we take the knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has so wonderfully and laboriously provided to us through his books. And that association with the pure devotee and the pure knowledge purifies and inspires and gives us faith. You see, by seeing Srila Prabhupada and by contacting him, this instilled faith in the early devotees, and they in turn practiced with sincerity, and they also experienced and became preachers on their own right. This is the movement is going on like that, And we had wonderful experience recently to have Bhakti Swami here, wonderful devotee from Russia, very, very erudite, and gave beautiful classes here just for a few days, you could say. And there are devotees like that, throughout the movement. I'm not one of them, but Maharaj is here. And the point is, this is an outpost. This is an outpost from the spiritual world. Prabhupada said, wherever the devotee, Krishna says, wherever devotees are glorifying me, that's where I am. I'm not in Vaikuntha. Naham tishtami Vaikunte yoginamadi yeshuva yatva gayati mudbhakta tattva tishtami narada. He says, he's speaking to Narada Muni, he says, I'm not really in Vaikuntha, I'm not in the hearts of the yogis, but wherever my devotees are glorifying me, that's where I stay. And that's what kirtan is. That's basically, the kirtan is that. And not only just chanting the holy name, but we have our classes every morning without fail. There's a class on Srimad Bhagavatam, or special occasions. We have speak about the glories of whoever great acharya like Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura appeared or disappeared on this day. And then in the evening, we have this Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We have our Gita class. You're all invited, 7:15 to 8:15. We're in the 9th chapter now, the central chapter, confidential knowledge. And so the idea is that Krishna has made himself available. He's reached out. There's a beautiful verse in the 12th canto, Srila Prabhupada always quote, Kalde doshanade rajam asti eko mahadguna kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangam padam bhajet. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Can anyone want to deny that? Argue with that? I mean, the things that are going on now is humanity really going to wreck the very climate and the very environment that's supporting life? It seems like they're hell-bent on doing it, So it's insane. So this is Kali Yuga. It's an ocean of faults, but there's one special quality. Asya mahadguna kirtanadeva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. By kirtan, by glorifying the holy name of Krishna, as like Hare Krishna mantra especially, one can become free of all attachments and entanglements in material world and go back to the spiritual world, into the material, to the Goloka Vrindavan. This is right there in the Bhagavatam, and there's so many wonderful descriptions about the holy name here. So this knowledge, I just wanted to emphasize one other point, and that is that how can we take up this process? Well, everyone's free to do it, but you have to have faith. You have to have some faith, because it's mystical and it's mysterious how this is working. And Srila Prabhupada's books help tremendously to instill that faith. Because as he said famously, I remember in 1977 when he was getting ready to depart, right in the 4th canto, that the most important association you can have with the spiritual master is through the words, not necessarily through the individual person. When that association is available, we should take it, certainly. But the words of Srila Prabhupada are non-different from him. In other words, he's present in those words in the most important way. And by those words, that instruction, we can strengthen our intelligence and our faith and our will to take up the process. We can take it at our own speed, but we should start chanting, and we should start reading, and if possible, associating personally with the devotees. At least get online, push the right buttons. We have the YouTube channel. We have hundreds of classes. The wonderful the lounge program, Krishna Lounge, has been going on for years, and now this one down in the South Bay is starting to flourish very much. Thursday night and Friday night, starting at 7:15 or so. Kirtan, Hare Krishna Kirtan. Little talk, wonderful free vegan feast, very informal. But the idea is that try to open up your exposure to Krishna through the books and the chanting and the devotees and the temple and the prasadam, of course. And this will Krishna is all attractive. and he'll attract you to become more and more serious about practicing. The process is here. It is the only way. It is the only way to break our entanglement with this world, in this material world where we have to suffer old age, disease, and death, and birth repeatedly, and to open up the channel where we can actually go back to Godhead. It's very mysterious and mystical, but it's true. And that's what, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakura and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the whole line that we have. These are realized souls who say, yes, this is real. They're experiencing it. They describe it, their own experiences. And we can have hope. It's the only hope. Everything else is a false hope. What is that? Nateva du svarta katimi vishnam durashaya ye bahiratimana. This is Prahlad Maharaj's, one of Prabhupada's favorite verses to quote. That those who are simply entangled in the material things of trying to succeed in this material world and failing, they don't know that the ultimate goal is Vishnu. Nateva du svarta katimi vishnam. And therefore we're durashaya. We have so many hopes and aspirations that ultimately will be dashed. There is no safety, there is no security in this material world. It's all false. And to come to the truth, the spirit and sat, that which is sat, leave the asat, the ever-changing world of Maya, and come to the truth. This is the call of all the acharyas, and Srila Prabhupada so eloquently has given us the invitation, and the means, and the books, and the temple. It's all been provided now, so please take advantage of it. And I think we have a kirtan at 7. Are there any questions, comments on any of these points?
I had a brief question, Srila Prabhupada.
Please.
So we're talking about changing a form into Hare or Hara, and you said it's the evocative form. Does
Evocative,
that come
yes.
from evoke? What
No,
do you mean by
evocative means you're calling on someone. Oh, Tyler,
Yeah.
where are you?
That's what they ask. Yeah.
I'm calling out to Tyler, hoping you're here. That's the evocatives.
Okay.
So, oh Hara is in the Sanskrit it becomes Hare. We simply say oh Hare, and Krishna it doesn't change. So they're all evocative. We basically call, as Prabhupada said, it's just like, what does it mean famously? I don't know if it's Vaisheshika who coined this or his friend in Japan, but what does it mean? I need help. Help! Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, please engage me in your service. Lift me up out of illusion and place me at your lotus feet. The boat, the secure boat, one verse I would give you the verse, to travel across this dangerous ocean of birth and death. We don't. The whole problem is we don't recognize it. We think, well, I'm doing pretty good. Are we really? This is one of the, I'm not what is it called? The silver lining of the cloud of the pandemic. Suddenly everyone says, wow, I'm sitting here, I'm sitting here in Duluth somewhere, but I'm not secure. I'm not secure at all. There's a danger here, And actually, the history was that we had a lot of devotees come in during the pandemic. Suddenly it became, this is real, let me chant Hare Krishna. And, you came down at that time and others, So the point is we're always in that state, but we're in illusion. I'm doing okay. Like the Bhaktisiddhanta said, I'm good. And then the answer, you could be better, right? You're not good. No one's good. We're like on a knife edge. Anything can happen. So this movement, the whole reality, Krishna he's reaching out to us. He's reaching out to us through the great acharyas and devotees like Srila Prabhupada, with the holy name, the temples, everything that we have, and the deity, the wonderful deity, Krishna's there every morning, smiling at us. This wonderful mudra, this is called the mudra. Radharani has always had this. This is called the Abhay Dan mudra. Abhay Dan means the gift of fearlessness. Basically, don't worry. Just chant Hare Krishna, become our servants. We'll protect you. We'll take you back home, back to God. Do not worry, But if you want to look elsewhere, you try to, in the material sphere, you will not succeed. That's the idea. Thanks for your question. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Well, maybe could you share a little bit about that picture? We just learned that you took that picture on the journey to self-discovery.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a whole story behind that.
Okay.
I work with, although we're not physically together these days, I work with Archita Prabhu in L.A. I used to spend more time up there when the internet, now you can do everything through the internet. So what happened was, this journey of self-discovery, I have to give a shout out to Srila Prabhu. Because during the 90s, when Sir and I, we were working together, even though we weren't physically together, and he would point out, Prabhupada wrote this letter, and he said you could make books out of my lectures. Now that was already done. We have the teachings of Queen Kunti, the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev, like that. But he said, well, we can still do some more. So we put together this journey of self-discovery, which is similar to the science of self-realization. It's from lectures that Prabhupada gave and were published in Bhakti Guided, So the book came out, and I thought of that title, which I think is why it's still being distributed, Journey of Self-Discovery. Oh, that sounds interesting. But anyway, so in the reprints, we kept reprinting it. It was quite popular during the 90s especially. And at one point, Archita, he botched the cover, and then we had to print the book. So he had, do you have any pictures that might be good on the cover, I said, well, I took some pictures when I was in India last, and I think that's Lalita Devi's appearance place that you see there. So I sent them up there, and they would vet them with the distributors. So how would this be, on the cover, you see? And I think Vaisheshika and others, they said, well, that looks pretty good. It's kind of mysterious, So that's how that picture came to be on there. I didn't plan it out or anything like that. It's just one picture that I had. And they kept it, So that's the story behind that. Oh, Diane, you want to make... Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, it's an announcement before the kirtan. What is coming soon? We have the Christmas Eve Prasadam Festival in Radha's Garden. It's Mahabharata and Ladali. You don't want to miss it. That it's 5 hours kirtan Prasadam in Saturday, Christmas Day. Saturday.
23rd, Saturday the
24th.
It's Christmas
Saturday.
Eve. That's Christmas Eve, man.
Yeah. Saturday 24 from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you don't have the newsletter, we can give you the information where to go. What is the address? It's in La Mesa. We have your New Year's Kirtan Festival in Sunday, January 1st. You're welcome to join us. And we're going to have also Harinam, I think, New Year's Eve. And if you want to join us, and also means we are kicking our 50 anniversary of Radha Girida installation.
Not kicking it, we're kicking it off.
We're kicking off also. Or kicking and kicking off. When I kick. We start the year. You can join us for 4:30 in the morning if you want to start the year early. 4:30 in the morning for Mangal Arti. If you know, you can come 5:30 p.m. We're going to have a Kirtan festival, all Kirtan and Dravida's poetry. What else you can ask for that day? Prasadam, and the deities are going to give a special darshan, flower outfits. They're going to dress us in flower outfits for the start of the years. They're kicking off the 50th anniversary celebration. That's it. You can have also, if you want to give holiday gift for the brahmacharis, we have a long list of stuff you want to donate. Socks, they love socks, jacket, scarf. You can have everything is in the newsletter. I hope you get it. We have the BBT calendars. If you like, in the gift shop, $5 for 2023. We finished the temple roof. That's you have also in the newsletter. And we have the sponsor for today. Today, the feast is sponsored. Today, the feast is sponsored by the Chiliga family. Happy birthday and happy anniversary. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Thank you so much for the Chiliga family. And happy birthday and happy anniversary again. And also it's partially sponsored also in honor of Jaya Lakshmi, the mother of Varshana. She passed away 2 weeks ago. Okay. Thank you also Varshana, and we're going to say also for Jaya Lakshmi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's it for now. Hare Kirtan.
One final request. I realize as you read, Please sign up for the newsletter. It comes every week. I think we have a sign-up sheet out there. Just put your email
On
address
the table, that.
on the table outside. Yeah,
In the front, you can sign up. Yeah.
yeah.
And you can have all the information and more. Everything I tell you, you can get all the information there. All the upcoming events, who's gonna give class, everything. If you want to know the financial of the temple, all the information is there. What's going on? Okay, please sign up. And Hare Krishna. They're gonna have kirtan now.